We're chatting to Dr. Mike du Toit about the medical side of bone marrow transplant, and an amazing lady, leukemia survivor Debbie, tells her story to us this morning. And of course, remember to go out there and get your bandana. It's only 20 Rand. And you know what? You're going to make a big difference in someone's life today. And wear it. You can wear it any single way possible. Now, it's incredible to have you guys with us. Thank you so much for joining us on Expresso. Dr. Mike, tell us about a bone marrow transplant. How does someone become a donor?
Well, you become a donor by volunteering. You need to give a small blood sample. It's just taken from the arm. There's nothing else involved. That gets tested and goes into a big data bank. And when someone needs a transplant and is looking for a donor, those donors are matched against the recipient. And we hope we find a match.
When would someone need a transplant?
Usually when you've got a life-threatening disease. You can imagine people get unwell with leukemias, lymphomas, other disorders. They have a certain amount of treatment, but the treatment itself isn't quite enough to cure them. They need something bigger, something stronger, treatment which is either radiotherapy or chemotherapy, and which is effectively lethal treatment. And they need the bone marrow transplant as a rescue procedure after these high doses of chemotherapy or radiotherapy.
Now, someone who's no stranger to those big words and going through all of that. Debbie, share your story with us.
It was 10 years ago, so I've been survivor for 10 years.
Yay!
At the time, my son Finley was 2, my daughter Maxine was 5, and yeah, my life was going well. I was successful. I had a lovely business that was running, and you just think it's never going to happen to you. And the day I was diagnosed, they said to me, I've probably got 3 weeks to live if I don't start treatment straight away. In fact, they never let me go home again to see my children. They put me straight into hospital, and I think the next year was just a fight for my life, yeah, and I'm very lucky.
Were you feeling sick at all?
Yes, I was. For about 6 months, I started feeling tired, my neck was stiff, just couldn't do the normal things that I could do, and most people just put it down to, you know, you've got a busy, big business, you've got 2 small children, this is called stress. But, yeah, eventually when it was diagnosed, it was quite late. They were concerned that it had spread to my central nervous system, and they said that would not be a good prognosis, and then they did lumbar punctures to see that, and in fact it had spread. So, yeah, so I wasn't a likely candidate at that stage for survival, but I'm very lucky.
But you also went through a transplant. Tell us about that process.
I think the stress of the transplant was not so much a transplant. It's a quick and relatively easy procedure. It was the waiting for a donor. I was in remission after my first round of chemotherapy, and after the 3rd chemotherapy, they were ready to transplant me, but we couldn't find a donor. So for the next 6 months, I went home, and then over Christmas, they brought me back to have another round of chemo just to keep me in remission, and we found a lot of close matches, but not the perfect match. And then finally, it was almost 6 months later, we found a match in America.
Dr. Mike, why is it so difficult to find a match, and why aren't siblings or family members an immediate match?
Well, if you take a family with 4 siblings, same parents, those siblings do not look like each other. They're all different. That's because our genes fall in certain patterns from the parents. And for matching, you have a 25% chance of any one sibling being an identical bone marrow match. That's just the fact, the statistics of it. So your best chance of finding a donor is amongst your siblings. But if siblings are not a donor, and you walk down the street and you find someone who looks like you and you tap them on the shoulder and you say, will you be my donor? That person has a 1 in 100,000 chance of being a match as a randomly selected person from the same ethnic group.
Now, how painful is it if I decide today I want to become a donor and I get called up because my marrow matches? How painful is the whole process for the donor?
Really not at all. The process really involves stimulating the donor's bone marrow with little injections under the skin, done once a day for about 5 days. We then collect blood from the arms, from the veins in the arms. The patient lies on the bed. It's like a blood donation, but it takes about 6 or 7 hours. And you lie in the bed, the blood goes out through a machine and then back into your body again. And while it goes through the machine, we can skim off the stem cells that we need. So it's a very easy, painless process.
So you would encourage a lot of people out there to become donors?
It's so easy. And that donation makes a huge difference to an individual who's a recipient.
To one individual, it makes a huge difference. Debbie shared her story with us. Dr. Mike has just shared how easy it is, and it's not that painful. So go out there, make a difference. We've got all the details on our website. If you want to become a donor, expressoshow.com. Dr. Mike, Debbie, thank you so much for joining us on Expresso today. We're taking a break, and we'll be back after this.